Guys are having a good day. Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. Today is a sobering day. Sad in some respects, not so sad in other respects. Today, Derek Chauvin was convicted for the death of George Floyd. A lot of you saw what was going on with this trial, and so we wanted to talk about it and gather some smart Black people together to have a discussion. And you know that the reason we have Black media is so we can have the conversations that the media is not having and talk about the things that aren't being discussed in mainstream media. So my guests for today are Miss Zakia. Say your full name, Zakia. I know your last name, but say it for me, please.
Sure, Zakia Sankara Jabbar.
Zakia Sankar Jabbar. Okay, I was looking for your name on the moniker, and okay, Zakia Sankar Jabbar. We also have John Henry Harris. What's going on? And John F. Thomas out of LA. Hey, how you doing today, man? Good to see you. All right. So let me know, how many of you saw what happened with the trial? How many of you were watching the trial live? Everybody in the chat who's watching the trial live, say live. Those who caught it later, say later. I'd like to know how many of you were watching. It seemed like everybody was sort of hanging on the verdict. It reminded me of the OJ trial. You know, it really took me back to when OJ got convicted and everybody was watching to see what was going to happen. Another time when that happened was Trayvon. I don't know if y'all remember when they let Zimmerman go and they went ahead and said Zimmerman was innocent or not guilty, which was a huge mistake because he showed later on in his actions that he definitely was guilty. He's a terrible person. So let me start, ladies first. Mrs. Zakia, give me your thoughts on what's going on with Derek Chauvin, and in a minute we also want to talk about the young lady in Ohio, Makia Bryant, correct? That's her name.
Yes, it's pronounced Makai Bryant.
Right, okay, Makai Bryant. And so we're going to get to that in a second for sure. But let's start with what's going on in Minneapolis with Derek Chauvin. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we did get a triple guilty verdict today. And I have to say that I wasn't surprised. I know that the system will sacrifice one of its own sometimes when it is financially or if it makes sense financially for them to do so. Anybody living last summer, right, living in any city, the entire country participated in rebellions and protests. I mean, there was like all out rebellion in Minneapolis, and rightfully so from my perspective. I know there are people who feel differently about property damage, but sometimes that is what actually works. And I am under no illusions that the reason why we got 3 guilty verdicts, I have to say that I'm actually shocked that it was all 3 of them was guilty. I thought he would be convicted. I did, but I wasn't sure about all 3. So that is a direct result of poor and working class Black folks with a feeling that they have nothing else to lose, who got out in the streets, surrounded the police stations in Minneapolis, and participated in the rebellion. And for anybody to say that rebellions don't work or so-called riots don't work, I would beg to differ. That's my thoughts.
Okay. All right. So I'll go with you, John Henry Harris. What do you think? Do you think that the verdict came from, just lawyers and prosecutors and judges doing their job? Or do you think that there was that the public reaction to the killing drove what happened today?
Well, first of all, the murder was caught on camera. It was caught on camera. It's hard to dispute someone sitting on someone's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. The absurdity that they had to go through a whole trial and literally had to prove that was a murderous act was, asinine in itself to me. So it's difficult for me to find solace or peace with the guilty verdict. Although I'm happy for the outcome, it continues to set precedents in the judicial system for future cases of police brutality and racial profiling. But Floyd is gone. Even during the same week of the trial, Dante Wright, right there in Minnesota, the police shootings are still going on. According to the New York Times, since the beginning of the trial on March 29th, 3 people a day have died at the hands of the police. So, okay, I'm happy about the verdict, but it's hard for me to find solace and peace in this guilty verdict.
Okay. All right. So it's hard to find solace and peace. And you mentioned a lot of good points about the fact that it was on video and that
this isn't the first time a cop killing has been on video and there's been not guilty verdict. So
okay. Yeah. Well, let me go to you, John Thomas. And what do you think? I mean, what do we gain from this verdict? Because obviously there's Black people dying every day that don't get talked about in the media. And I think that's where we come in terms of being helpful in the conversation, is reminding us that as terrible as the George Floyd tragedy was, it wasn't the only tragedy that happened, even that day, even that week. I live in Chicago. There's a lot of people that died that didn't get our attention. That we on one hand, we say Black Life Matters, but then on the other hand, I present a Black life that was just lost and no one cares. It doesn't matter. How do you balance the two? I mean, what do we gain as a community with this conviction, and what do we go from here?
Well, with this conviction, they did sacrifice one of their own to me, because every once in a while, like I said before, like they throw crumbs to the Black community. And I saw a lot of people saying that, oh, I'm crying because of this conviction, guilty on all counts. And I understand that, but how much more are we going to be crying? How much longer are we going to be crying and begging and asking? So from this point, we can't get comfortable. We can't keep being in this position, this lowly position that they see us as, and they see us as weak, and they see us as extremely emotional. And they take advantage of all of these things to constantly move us how they want us to move. So us getting that one crumb. I mean, they've done this. I mean, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, this is the beginning. Well, how many times has this been the beginning other times before? Where a cop has been convicted and like, oh, this is the beginning. But then how many more deaths have occurred to where we go back to this is the beginning? So I press that we not get so emotional, but focus, because they're going to give us this crumb just to satiate and pacify us so that they can roll out more killings. Like this girl that got killed today, the same day of the verdict, she got killed, murdered by the police. And they're going to keep doing it because they know they can, until we tell them and show them and stop asking, stop begging, stop. I mean, you can march and stuff like that, but we have to do more. We have to demand. Until we start demanding and showing that there will be consequences if you keep doing this, they will continue doing that. So I would say that we just need to focus. And as far as the killings that go on in our own streets, within our own communities, that still follows back to the system, because we were set in a place to fail. I mean, yes, there are some of us that are doing that, but we don't have any people offering jobs within our own communities. And we're trying to, we need to support one another, and we need to really get out there and create our own jobs to give to our own people, because we're going to other people to give jobs, and the people who can't get the jobs, they feel like there's no hope left, and they're already getting sent to juvenile detention and school, and they don't have father figures, because all the father figures are arrested because of drug convictions, thanks to Joe Biden, who we voted in. So Joe Biden as the father of the crime bill, and he put all of our Black men and women in jail. So we don't have the figures that we need in a community. So it all goes back to this white supremacist system that we need to attack and focus and stop being so emotional.
Can I respond to your question, boys?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have to say, you probably gonna invite me on after this. But I say I resent the conflation between intra-community violence and police murder and police brutality in our community. Why do we assume Black people don't care when we don't own and control the media? Do y'all know that the media decides what they're going to cover and what they're not going to cover? Not Black people. And furthermore, there are Black-led organizations in Chicago. I can point them out to you if you like, and all over the country that are absolutely fighting intra-community violence, but doing it in a way that leaves the community whole. So, and like the other brother just said, you know, both situations, the root causes is still in this country white domination and white supremacy. Period. I see intracommunity violence as a sociological and public health emergency. It is absolutely about job access. There's literally research out there. I mean, criminologists is not like brain science anymore. We should all know this by now. That when you have intracommunity violence, this is about a lack of access, a lack of resources. We know that, I mean, you know, boys, that we're economically castrated in this country. All of that plays into it. And it's not about making excuses. It's about recognizing what the root causes are. And also, while we're at it, let's start supporting and funding the Black organizations that are trying to deal with so-called Black on Black crime.
Well, you know, I think you make a great point. And you're right. I think the media drives a lot of what we pay attention to. And when I'll tell you, Zakiya, when I put stuff on my Instagram page and I talk about killings in Chicago, I do see some concern. I see a lot of people that respond favorably, but the level of the reaction, you know, that I see when it comes to all the other ways that Black people die, because, you know, we die every day, every single day. The level of reaction tends to vary based on whether or not it's been amplified and sanctioned by white media. That when white folks say you have a permission to be outraged about this, we get outraged, right? That's, to me, a form of white supremacy, where it seems to me that that if I talk about George Floyd, through the roof, right? We talk about you know, something else, you know, the next shooting. There'll be another one. There's another one every week. They throw one out there every single week, right? To get our attention. The reactions through the roof. Sean King posts stuff. Oh my God, I can't believe they did this, through the roof. But it almost seems to me that if I get killed, if George Floyd had been killed by a Black man, y'all wouldn't know his name. I really believe that. And I think that the question becomes, how do you sort out the two? Because you're 100% correct. There are great organizations doing excellent work. But if George Floyd had been killed by a Black man, we would not be talking about him right now. Let's just keep it 100. What do you think, Joe? I'll go. Okay. I'll let the kids respond, and then
yeah. Well, I think sometimes yes, sometimes not. I don't know where you live or where I live. They always on the local news talking about Black on Black crime. So when a Black person kills another Black person, they you know, if it bleeds, it leads, right? You know, they run into the hood to cover it. So yes, but also keep in mind, I live in suburban Washington, D.C., right here in a very wealthy community, Montgomery County, Maryland. Have you heard of any of the Black men that have been killed by Montgomery County police within the last month? No, right? Police, so they don't even cover every police murder, right? So, I mean, I don't know if we should be doing a barometer on our people based on media attention. But I also feel what you're saying, Boyce, in terms of, you're right. Like, if the media covers it, there is more engagement. That's just the power of the media. You know that. But yeah, let the other brother get in.
Yeah. And John, I'd like for you to address this question. So Zakiya made a good point about police murder. Is it automatically murder every time a cop shoots a Black person? Do you believe that? What do you think?
John, I think it's murder. I think it's murder when the police shoot someone and they're not in defense of their own life. Now, my outrage comes from the lack of reaction of how white people don't get killed and the things that they do get away with the police, you know, and how they don't get killed, and there's not an overwhelming reaction to that. Like during the same week of the Derek Chauvin trial, which had the 61-year-old white guy, he rammed like 2 police cars, assaulted a police officer with a hammer, and then drugged the police car as he sped off. And he was arrested unscathed, no shots fired, no tasers deployed. Now, where was the fear of that police officer's life then? He actually rammed 2 cars hard. You know what I'm saying? And then look at that what's his name? Merrick Burr, the Ohio man. He had a loaded 9mm Beretta and threatened to shoot the police officers during a traffic stop. Where was the fear for their lives? They let him get away unscathed. You know, he drove off, and he lives to see another day. Like, that's what and this is And what this trial is doing, it's so crazy. I don't know. I don't know if this is God just trying to show, and the veil is falling, but the hypocrisy, the hypocrisy is so blaring. It's like you can't deny it anymore because of the coverage of the media, because of the media, the sub media below, commercial national media. The truth is out there, and you can't deny it anymore.
Well, you know what? Let me show you all a graphic I found online. Just to, if we want to put police killings in context, it's not in complete context though, because we don't know, why the shootings happened, what the circumstances were. But this is a graph that shows police shootings by race, and I'm gonna actually pull this up to try to make it a little bit bigger. You see, okay, so it's color coded by year, and so for example, this is the white section. Meaning that this is the number of white people killed by cops each year. This is 2017, the blue. The next one's 2018, then 2019, 2020. Now, 2021 is lower because we haven't gone through much of the year. Now, this is black, 223, 209, 235, 241, pretty flat. Now, what's interesting, though, is even though the white number is bigger than the black number, the fact that black people are just 1/8 of the population, about 12%, means our number should be about 12%, right? So 12% of 457 is approximately about 35, right? So the number for black folks should be maybe 35, 40, but actually it's about 5 or 6 times that, right? So there's clearly a greater number of instances of black people being killed by the cops, and this is Hispanic over here, and this is other. So based on this chart, what do you think? I mean, how do you think about, ways that the police could do their job more effectively? I mean, has any of you thought about anything in terms of if you were to talk to police or be able to issue a law to change the way policing is done? What would you change? Would they go out without guns? Would they what? I don't know. What would you adjust if you could change? Anybody can answer that question. Actually, I know we were circling around to John Thomas, and you can go first if you like, or anybody else can jump in. What are your thoughts?
I would say definitely like how they have the body cameras. I mean, that's one thing that they've done, but I think there's been some laws where now you can't turn the body camera off, but definitely have the body cameras on, and stop allowing whenever there's a payment to whatever family that lost a black unarmed person killed by the police, murdered by the police, that is not coming out of taxpayers' money, because that's not holding the police accountable. The police need to be held accountable. Let it come out of their own pockets. Stop allowing the unions and the politicians and this government, because really, if you think about it, it's all the system protecting itself. But we need for them to be held accountable, and they are like the first barrier, going into this whole governmental system. So there's a reason why they don't want to hold the police accountable, because if you hold the police accountable, then you have to hold the politicians accountable. If you hold the politicians accountable, then you have to hold the government accountable. When you hold the government accountable, then everything should be all fair play for everyone across the board. And that's the thing, we can't sit here and expect that these things are going to happen. Yes, this is a start, but again, how many starts have we had? That's why I say we have to start demanding things, have to start telling them, if you don't, like even in our own communities, how they used to do. I don't know if y'all remember watching the Malcolm X movie, where they had men standing around as if you do anything to this black man or black woman, you are going to have to deal with us. We are armed and we are ready to protect and defend our community if need be. And not saying that we need to go out and just start shooting everybody and anybody, but we need to have that line of defense to protect our own, because our, not only just the black men, but our black women who need us, and our black children who need our support. So we can't keep begging and asking and being so compliant and submissive. We have to start straightening our back up and really going out there and defending our own people, to show that there are consequences to your actions should you cross that line.
I'm on the channel.
Zakia, no, as you speak on that, I'd be curious to also know. I don't know, was George Floyd killed in a black community? We know
North Minneapolis is a black part of town. Minneapolis.
Okay. I was curious. I didn't know about that part.
Yes.
I wasn't sure. So go ahead, please.
So I want to channel our sister Elaine Brown, former Black Panther member. She said, well, since we ain't saying off the pigs no more, let's talk about something else, right? Let me just say this. The police cannot be reformed here. There is not a policy, not a law, or anything that can be passed that will change the fundamental relationship of the institution of policing in Black folks. That's number one. So to me, number two has to be, how then do we create a system of justice that does not involve policing in the way that it is set up right now? That to me has to be the conversation. Those are the conversations I want to be in with other Black folks and other like-minded people to figure out, right, how do we abolish this current system? And in the process, right, how then do we create a system of real justice? Because let me be clear, we have been conditioned to believe, even Black people, after all of this evidence, conditioned to believe that police equals safety. So when you start hearing people say defund the police, right, abolish the police and all of these different things, people get scared and think that's a crazy idea. No, what's crazy is that we continue to allow the police to continue to kill our people and our children. That's what's crazy. So to me, a logical response is that we have to develop a real system of justice and get creative. And it cannot include a mostly white male force that is backed up by the law that can hop out of their car like this devil just did in Columbus, Ohio, and shoot a young Black girl 4 times in the chest. No, it can't be reformed.
Well, I think that one thing, John, is that, if you think about it, right, it's easy for us to imagine the situation where you have an all-white group of cops patrolling a Black neighborhood. It happens all the time. But how often do you see all groups of Black men patrolling, or Black women even patrolling an all-white neighborhood, and going in and killing, a white person, right? That would be a rare sight. So it seems to me that that's part of where you have to start the conversation, right? It's just that weird racial imbalance that really actually comes back from slavery. I mean, the police started off as slave patrols. Their original job was to chase down and hunt down and stop Black people from doing whatever they thought we were doing. What do you think about that, John? It almost seems like we have to rebuild the police, just policing all across America. We can't fix it. Just destroy it and rebuild something better. What are your thoughts?
That's the only reasonable answer. Rebuild, destroy it and rebuild it. But the likelihood of that happening, probably slim to none. If we go back on all these police killings, from Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, Philando Castile, whoever, all these people were murdered behind misdemeanors, traffic stops, and other ticketable offenses. In other words, non-violent situations, like very petty situations. But then you have like the Oklahoma City bomber, Tim McVeigh. You had Dallin Roof, the guy Robert Aaron Lang, who killed all those, had killed 8 people in the 3 Atlanta area massage parlors. Again, all these people were taken alive. Look at the people at the Capitol riot. They stormed the Capitol.
Yeah.
Clear line of difference, the way people are treated when they are encountering law enforcement in this country. And that is a secret, and that is a lie that this country cannot afford to tell anymore. It's not going to work. You're on camera. You're caught on candid camera. This is streamed throughout the world. The world sees this.
Can
I just say really quickly that I don't think it's slim to none that we can abolish this current system and build another. It may take a while, but I don't think that it's slim to none. I do think that if you get enough people organized and pushing for something like this, I do believe that it can happen. I think there were probably people today who thought that Derek Chauvin was not going to be convicted because 9 times out of 10, literally, cops usually aren't convicted, let alone charged in the first place. So I just wanted to say that, because if we start from the place that it's not going to happen, then we can't imagine, then we can't get creative, then we won't even start to lift a finger to create something.
Well, you know, it seems to me,
even creating something, but a new police force. I just would rather. I feel like it's more practical and productive to put my efforts in other places, man.
I didn't say a new police force, but I feel you.
Well, I want to let everybody know. First of all, I want to say thank you to Tracy Thomas, who supported the channel. Thank you for your donation, Tracy. We really appreciate that. And also, everybody who's watching, if you could take 1 second right now, please hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe button. I hope you're understanding how important Black media is, so we can have these conversations, because these are not the discussions that are going to be had on CNN or anywhere else. And also, we have the allblackagenda.com. If you want to implement a Black agenda in your household, don't wait for the government. We have lots of stuff there. The $5 a day investing plan, content from the Minister of Health, Nathaniel Jordan, on how to be healthy, how to educate your kids, homeschooling methods, all kinds of stuff. So go to the allblackagenda.com. Just take a look and see what you can find. Most of the resources on there are free or very low cost. Now, so let's talk about this, right? One of the things that's really interesting is that when you talk about reforming policing, you know, and I've thought about this a lot. You know, my father was a cop. And I believe in, I don't really follow trends that well. I don't care what I don't care what white folks tell me to think, and I don't care what half the Black people are telling me to think, because I think that we are white supremacists inherently. Unfortunately, we're trained to be that way from childhood. So I went and I was trying to sort of figure it out. You know, I saw my father get up and go to work every day. And I saw my mother. I saw the things he confronted. You know, the hard thing about being a cop, I think, which is why I never became one. He wouldn't let me become one. Is that when there's a problem, when there's danger, most people run away from danger. Like if we make jokes about how in the movie theater, Black people see somebody running, they all start running too, just because. Well, you know, when people see danger, they run away from the danger. The officers that are really trying to do the right thing, and I do believe that they're out there because I've met them. I know guys like that and women like that. They run toward the danger. That's not natural. That's very uncomfortable. And I remember that my father being a man who ran toward the danger. I remember my mother saying, "I need you to make sure you come home because you got kids. We need whatever confrontation you run into, you got to make sure you come home." And I thought about that because there was a time where a white man pulled a weapon on my father, and he had to kill that white man. And the white people in that neighborhood, it was an all white neighborhood. He's a Black cop, went in there, shot this white man and killed him because he pulled out a weapon. And the people in the neighborhood, the white people in the neighborhood, this is just true story, just me giving y'all facts. They sent him thank you cards and money and everything. They said, "Thank you for dealing with this situation." And I thought about all of that in the conversations I've had with police to understand, what does it look like? What does our nation need to look like when we talk about really correcting the problems we have with policing? The problems we have obviously is the racial history of policing. Police are not here to protect good people from bad people. They're here to protect the rich from the poor, the white from the Black. So if you're Black, you're in certain neighborhoods, the cop is the guy traditionally that will roll up and say, "Why are you here? What you doing out here, boy?" That type of thing. Also, the police have been overly militarized. They made all these weapons to go fight war. We have the military industrial complex that make all these weapons to go fight these stupid wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. You got all these extra weapons, these crazy tanks and battering rams and heat-seeking missiles or whatever the hell they got. And then they're like, "Well, we don't have anywhere else to use them, so let's just sell them to the police." And then next thing you know, you're turning those weapons on American citizens. And before you know it, you get people killed over tiny misdemeanors, like John said. So it almost seems to me, to your point, I hear what Zakiya is saying, in that I don't think it's impossible to imagine tearing down policing in America altogether. That a new model has to be evolved. Like, you cannot take the because I've seen the good and the bad. You know, you've got the blue wall of silence where cops don't tell each other. Like a cop, there have been cops that have been killed by other cops because they snitched. Right? It's like being in a Crip or Blood or something. Like, I'm talking about old school Crips. Like, you know, back in the day, you snitch on somebody, you're gonna go down. If you're in the mafia, you snitch, you go down. When the cops, you snitch, there are cops that will kill you for snitching. So I think that to your point, it seems to me that we have to dream of a bigger model to say, here's the solution. And it can't be a stupid solution though either. It can't be a solution where we act like we don't need police. Because first thing y'all do when we get scared is we call the cops, right? You're supposed to hate the cops, scared of the cops. Cops are evil. Well, why are you calling the cops when somebody breaking your house, right? So how do we draw that balance? And I throw this out to the whole panel. How do we draw a balance where we say, look, we know we need police, we want to be safe, but we don't want this. Like this is too much. What do you do? It's not a politically correct solution, right? It's not an extremist solution, but it's got to be a solution. What's the solution? Let's dig deeper on that. I know I asked you about that before, but I'd be curious to know from the panel if you have another thought on that.
The closest thing I can think of is starting with community policing. Having people that are actually from that community police that community so they know who people are. Oh, that's just crazy. Joe, he all right. He ain't bother nobody. He means nobody any harm. Or, oh, that's risky. Yeah, you better watch yourself around him. You know what I'm saying? That's a start. That's just a start. But it's rough, man, because I don't envy the position of the police at all, because it is a dangerous job. And I recognize that people are crazy. And people are crazy. I mean, I see crazy people every time I leave out my house. I'm like, dang, this people crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I know they're in a tough position. However, it's just they have to be held accountable when they make, whether it is a mistake. Even if it is a mistake, you still need to be held accountable for that, because there's loss of life and limb, and people are affected. It's a hard job. And I say I have a healthy distrust of the police, I will admit, but I do not envy their position at all.
Yeah, well, I think it makes sense to, as a black man, to be distrustful of the police. I have a complete I would say if I had anything that I was almost scared of, I try not to be scared of anything, but everybody's got something that gets them. It's really the criminal justice system altogether. The police have unfortunately, because of the racism, become like toxic, where I would almost say to any black man, just don't even go near the police. And the reason is because when you simply engage with an officer, your life is at risk, because if he asks you to do something inappropriate, like if he says, hey boy, turn around, put your hands behind your back, and you say no, and you flinch and you fight back just a little bit, then they can charge you with assaulting an officer, and you're facing 10 years in prison. So it's not a balanced engagement to begin with. So it almost seems to me that the biggest danger for the black male with police is simply even talking to a cop. And that breaks my heart, because I know cops I went to kindergarten with who are really good dudes. They don't wake up every morning saying, how do I go kill a black man today? But unfortunately, they have people that are on the force that believe they're above the law, that will go plant drugs on somebody, that will, kill somebody for no reason, or will go literally harass somebody. They find out their girlfriend's dating some guy. They use the police database to find out where he's at, and they go and use the power of the law to abuse that person. The police department, a lot of people don't know this, but police departments attract a lot of crazy ass people. People don't know that there's a lot of crazy ass, weak ass, pathetic men who want the power of having a badge and a gun. Like they're compensating for something else. So when they get that badge and gun, some of them, it's scary, right? And here's the scary thing too that's really interesting. I invite y'all to comment. I don't mean to talk so much, but one thing a cop mentioned to me that was really interesting was he said now that because of the protests, because of everything that's going on, he said nobody wants to be a cop anymore, because it used to be a profession where you got some respect from the community. He said now everybody hates you, thinks you want to kill black people just because you put on the uniform. He said, so now the problem you have, he said back in the day, we put out a job posting, we'd have 500 people apply for that job. He said now we can't get 50 people that'll want that job. So he said what you're getting now, unfortunately, as cops are the people that can't get a job anywhere else.
They don't pay enough. Police officers don't make enough money, man. Like I said, I do not envy their position, because they're not getting paid enough to risk their life every day like that.
Yeah. So it almost seems to me like, and then remember this too, though, because this you have the stigma of being a cop. You're not going to attract, like, you can't get me to be no cop. I'm not trying to go through the community, have everybody thinking, that they hate me just because I'm wearing the uniform. I'm not wearing that uniform. You know, so what do you do about that? The fact that now policing probably is worse because the people you're actually getting that want to be cops are just the most undesirable people that there are. How do you fix that?
So I want to respond to a couple of things. Number one, policing is actually one of the safest jobs. That's data, not propaganda. Policing is actually one of the safest jobs. Ain't nobody out here killing cops. Ain't nobody out here killing cops. Yes, okay. You understand what you're getting into when you sign up for the job. Ain't no sympathy for that. You need to be a professional and do your job in a professional manner. That don't give you the license to go out here and kill people, especially Black people, period. Ain't no excuses for the cops, for me. Then number two, as far as crazy people being attracted to policing, not just crazy people, the FBI has reported that white supremacists have been joining the police force for decades in droves, especially recently. So this idea that ain't nobody signing up to be a police, white supremacists are, that's a strategy that they're using, a license to kill. So we need to tell the truth on this panel. And boys, you can look it up. There is an FBI report out there.
I'm not going to disagree with that point. I'm just going to say, I don't want to be a cop because I feel like the job is dangerous. You know, I saw cops every day, and I saw cops that got murdered on the job. I don't know anybody else. How many of y'all have a job other than police officers?
I think we should look at the stats. I mean, there is a certain.
Seriously though,
construction workers are probably less safe than cops.
Okay, I'm not going to doubt that. I'm not, and thank God for social workers, right? Without a doubt.
No, construction workers. I'm sorry.
Construction workers. Yeah. Okay. Without a doubt. But you know, when you are a cop, you are going in and you're finding the most dangerous people in the city, the dope dealers who murder people like nothing and running up on them and getting into gunfight situations. I have a hard time. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm just going to say that I wouldn't define being a cop to be a safe job. I don't. I mean, you got the power of the state, you have weapons, but your adversaries don't give.
And you also have the Fraternal Order of Police. It's a gang. The Fraternal Order of the Police is an evolved Ku Klux Klan. Let's just tell the truth. I live in the state of Maryland, and it took us. Let me tell you about the legislative process, just real quick. Freddie Gray was murdered 6 years ago yesterday in Baltimore, Maryland. And it literally took all of those 6 years for Maryland just this year to repeal the so-called Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. Where do you know that cops got extra rights all across this country? Maryland was the first state to pass a so-called Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, and then other states started doing it. So it's not just this idea of the policing is so dangerous. These MFers actually got extra rights than regular people don't have.
Okay.
And so my thing is that the FOP is we cannot talk about policing in this country and not have a conversation about the FOP, boys. Right. We got to talk about the Fraternal Order of Police. Oh, they're straight up gang.
I agree with you 100%. I think that like most of I like labor unions. I'm a pro-union person, but when I see police officers, also when I see teachers, like in cities like Chicago, it gets to the point sometimes where the union defends the union members so much that they get to the point where things don't make any sense anymore. Like I'm convinced that some of the teachers unions care more about teachers than they care about the kids, right?
That's a fact.
Yeah. And so I will agree with you. I think with FOP, that's a mistake that they consistently make is they're always defending officers too quick. And it seems to me that in this extremist society we live in, you have mistakes on each of those sides, right? You got people that will instantly assume that because somebody got shot, it was because the cop was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. I don't do that. I like to look at facts. I like to look at information. I don't just react until I know what's going on. But then also on the flip side, the FOP, similar to the NRA, will defend their position without any concern for the consequences or concern for the truth. So you're right about that. Where I will say I have a different perspective is I think that because I know so many cops who have been attacked on the job, beaten on the job, shot on the job, I don't see being a police officer as a safe job. You know, I just to tell you, a quick story. I knew a Hispanic man actually that got into a situation where he was driving to get a tux for a wedding, and he saw another Hispanic man beating on a woman. And so he pulls over and he pulls out his gun to get the guy to stop beating the woman. Well, the guy that he pulled his gun out on was a gang member. And so all his buddies surrounding him, these are all Hispanic men. Nobody was African-American in this situation. And he said that he said, I froze because I didn't want to be seen on TV as the Mexican who shot another Mexican. Right. So the minute he froze, he said, one of the guys ran me over with his car. And he said that my so-called Mexican brothers left me for dead on the street. And here I was thinking about protecting their lives and thinking about the consequences of shooting somebody, and I almost died. So he was confronted with this interesting reality where he went back. And of course, the racist police officers are like, or the just cops in general are saying, that's why you got to kill them before they kill you, because this is war, right? This ain't no fairy tale. This is war. But at the same time, he was conflicted by the fact that he didn't want to shoot somebody from his own community. So he ended up having to get 10 years of therapy, and he left the police force. Because so he was very anti-police abuse. But he said, people don't know the whole story. People don't know about what I went through, and that I have friends that have gone through similar things. And I almost feel, it almost seems to me like sometimes we need a balanced conversation when we talk about it. Not to the point we can't confront the truth, but we got to aim for the truth and not just aim for the politics. You know, what do y'all think?
I think that both of you have a point. I mean, because, and the reason why I say that is there are good cops out there. I mean, it's just like there's good everything in every sector. You know, there's good doctors, there's good teachers, there's good this. But at times the bad outweighs the good. Just like almost in every job that you're in, when you see something wrong, I'm not gonna say every job, but almost every job, when you see something wrong and you try to stand up for what is right, or you try to call out this one person or this process that is corrupt or illegal or whatever, they tend to get rid of that good person. Same thing like the good cops in New York. There is a video, basically a documentary that is showing a group of cops, good cops, that are trying to do the right thing, but their own union and their own fellow police officers are against them and are trying to paint them as crazy. So they're trying to sue the police union, and they're currently losing, I think. But you know, it's just like, but they get ignored, that they're actually doing a good thing and trying to actually make the police union and everything better, but they're being pushed out because they want to keep the corrupt, all the process in order. Hey, everything is good. I don't need you coming in here messing everything up, so you got to go. And so I would say what we need to fix is, like, we need better, just like John was saying, community police. We need tougher entry requirements, because you just can't let anybody just come off the street and just be an officer, and this person might be crazy. And also, I heard that, I'm not entirely sure, but I've been told numerous times that if you have a high IQ, they won't let you in to be a police officer. And which, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because if you sit there and you think, and also you see something that's wrong and you try to report on it or try to make things better, they don't like that. Even just like a job, if you try to make things, hey, this would be better for everybody, they don't like that. You need to do the status quo, and we need to get you out of here because you're trying to change things, and the structure doesn't like change. Those in power don't like change. And also, lastly, we need an independent oversight committee when it comes to police protecting their own from accountability. Because if we don't have that, if we have the police unions only looking out, it's like you telling, I'm telling on you, and your boss telling me, which both of you are together at this job, like, okay, I'll look into it. So it makes more sense for him to, I'm gonna protect you, because if I have to hold you accountable, then they have to hold me accountable. And there's a whole lot of other people who even swept a lot of the stuff that they've been doing, planting drugs, planting a gun, which a lot of Black people, we are 13% of the country, but we heavily outnumber everybody else in the jail cells. So if we really look back at all those reports, there will be a lot of people that should be free now. But that's all I have to say.
Hey, I'm with Tap In Productions. That's what I was just about to say. I mean, good cops. I mean, okay. They are the super minority then. You know what I'm saying? And I guess I'm concerned that in the spirit of so-called trying to be balanced, that we are forgetting the fact that Black people died disproportionately from police brutality and police murder. When you even look at the payouts a lot of times, specifically for Black men. Dr. Boyce, you a math guy? I mean, if you look at what the payouts are for our lives versus when white folks get killed by the police, one of the largest settlements in this country of a police murder was the white woman in Minnesota that got killed by a Black cop.
Wow. How much was that? Do you remember?
I want to say it was 27 million or more.
Wow.
You have to check me on that. It's probably just Google it real quick. But that's a problem. Versus you get single digits. Sometimes 10 or 12 for Black men being murdered by cops. You got to look at this thing from a totality of, in my opinion, to me, it has to be a full, and the other reason too is like, you got cops that in Texas, Black folks sitting in their own house getting killed by the police.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I listen, man, good cops, I'm with whoever said they'll be arresting the bad ones.
Well, you know, and to your point, Zakia, this idea of the good cop versus the bad cop, it gets past the fact that you're really talking about systematic racism. You're talking about a system. And when you get into a system, what kind of person you are matters a lot less than what the system demands of you at a certain time. You know, like, for example, I might be a health food junkie, but if I work at McDonald's, I'm going to be slinging cheeseburgers all day. You know, it don't matter that I believe in health food. I'm not going to serve health food when I get on a McDonald's uniform. I'm going to be serving Big Macs and quarter pounders, right? So if I am a good person and I want to be the good cop, but I have been trained in a bad system by bad, people, bad politicians, bad leadership, then I'm good. If I want to remain in compliance with that system, I'm going to have to go with that system. You know, that's one of the reasons why, for example, I would argue that a lot of Black folks don't need to go work for white people because you're working in a white supremacist system and you try to be the good cop, so to speak. You think I'm going to go in and change the system from within. No, you can't. That's going to be hard for you to do. You stay away from that system because that system is going to turn you into a white supremacist because you're going to be implementing the orders of those who are your superiors. And the one thing I do know about cops, and somebody mentioned that I'm biased because I know so many cops, and that's 100% correct. I'm definitely biased, or maybe I have a different bias from some people who know nothing about anything, don't even know no cops, right? But I do. I've known cops, I've known criminals, I know everything in between. And one thing I can tell you is that police officers are soldiers, and they're implementing orders from a system that should be destroyed from the ground up. It's overly militarized. It does create a type of policing where you're engaging with Black men, particularly more than anybody else. The more you engage with police, the more likely you are to have a problem. So when you talk about stop and frisk policies like that, well, then you're creating chaos because really, if somebody's carrying an ounce of weed in his pocket, you don't need to be talking to him in the first place. Leave him alone, right? And that prevents all the little things that you've seen blow up into big things. Because it seems to me that when you go back to even to Eric Garner, I mean, the man was selling Lucy cigarettes. Like, who cares? Let the man sell it. Right. It wasn't, George Floyd, alleged counterfeit $20 bill.
That was economics. He had to sell Lucy's, right? Because like, where was his middle-class job? I mean, all of this is systemic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That a lot of times Black men specifically are forced into this underground economy.
Yeah, that is 100% true. And so I think that it seems to me that the solution is a complex one that is going to require just a rethinking of all of this. John, I like your point you made about us policing our own communities. We just got to start right there. If you could run with a gang of white boys and control a Black neighborhood, and we can't do that in your neighborhood. Well, that right there is clear as day in terms of the bias, right? It would be outrageous if we did that, but yet somehow you think it's normal for you to do that to us. Well, it's not normal, right? So I want to ask about this. There was a sister that was shot in Ohio. Zakia, you brought that up. I'm gonna let you tell that story. And you actually described it as a revenge killing. Do you feel like it's a revenge killing? Do you know that it is, or what? Why did you use that particular terminology to describe what happened with the sister? And give her name in the background. Ma'Khia Bryant. Did I say it right?
Yes, her family pronounced her name. Her aunt, who was in a video, pronounced her name as Ma'Khia Bryant. She was 15 years old. These are our children, y'all. Right? How do we protect our children? So So I want to give some background. I lived in Ohio before moving to the greater Washington, D.C. area for 20 years. I did a lot of my advocacy and organizing work in Ohio. So I have a very deep connection to Ohio, and lots of family still in Cleveland and Dayton. Shout out to my family if y'all watching. However, my phone just started blowing up. Like I was getting messages from people like the cops have killed a 15-year-old Black girl. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? What happened? And so people started tagging me in the Facebook videos of the people who were actually there who witnessed it. And from the stories of the people there, right? I'm sure we've been on now for almost an hour. Some media has probably picked it up now. But from the stories that I've heard of the actual witnesses is that this sister, young girl, called the police actually for help, right? How many times do Black people call the police and end up dead? She actually called for help, and she had a knife in her hand, but she was defending herself from an assailant, is what the community has said happened. Now, the police, according to the community, this short white male police officer, hopped out and started busting on site, according to the community. Now, that's a verified case of what happened to Tamir Rice. Within 3 seconds, right, the video showed in Cleveland when they killed that baby, 12 years old. 3 seconds, he got out and started shooting. I need to know who is training the police in Ohio. And are they trained to jump out of their car and not ask any questions, not even assess the situation, and just start shooting?
Is there any footage of what happened to young Miss Bryant in Ohio, or is
yes, there's footage. There's a video that's showing the baby laying out on the pavement. People were right there.
Is there footage of the incident when the police arrived?
If he had on his body cam, yeah. But I mean, you know how that is. We gotta wait forever until that is released.
You know what? I do remember seeing that where they did say that they were gonna release the body cam footage. And I think that'll be very interesting to observe. And it's hard to imagine somebody having to shoot a 15-year-old girl, in that situation. I can't imagine what could have occurred. But first of all, my heart goes out to the family. But then second of all, I look forward to seeing what happened here. Now I'm really, trying to process this part. Maybe y'all can help me with this. Every week I hear about a police shooting, and every week it's sort of like that's the shooting of the week or the shooting of the month, and we all rally around it, and everyone's upset. And I'm wondering, is this sort of like a merry-go-round that we're going to be on for the next 40 years? Every week a new shooting, new outrage. Ben Crump shows up, Al Sharpton. And I mean, is that going to be the pattern, or is there a point where you say, okay, no, this is actually the end goal? That we're looking to achieve something here, so we're not sort of going from one shooting to the next, because it almost seems to me that we have a lot of other issues to deal with. It's like if your body has cancer or some disease that you're dying from, but one of the symptoms is that you sneeze a lot, and somebody is saying, oh, you're sneezing, here's a tissue. Oh, you sneeze again, here's a tissue. And they're constantly correcting the sneezing, but nobody stops to actually do the surgery and give you the real medication you need. It seems like you can get caught in the loop. John, do you think that we're getting caught in the loop where every week there's a new shooting and we think about that one situation, and it almost seems like we're forgetting about all the other thousands of people that are really suffering right now, that are in prison right now, being beaten by guards, being raped, murdered, everything else. And I'm not hearing any talk about that. How do we deal with both things at the same time? What do you guys think?
Well, I think, first of all, JT made a very, very good point. They need to they need to up the entry requirements to be a police officer. If you think about it, it takes longer for someone to become a CNA or even a hairdresser than to become a police officer. And they have the power of life and death on the side of their hip. So I think there definitely needs to be better requirements, increased requirements. And I also think that the police officers, the police department, and all these people in the whole judiciary branch of the government on whatever level, local, regional, state, federal, they need to have show more respect for the law themselves. You're put in charge. You have a charge of upholding and protecting the law. So therefore, you should be knowledgeable of the law yourself. You should be held to a higher standard when um, applying this law. You can't be breaking the law when you're supposed to be enforcing the law. And then you think you're just going to get away with these lawless acts and think that it's going to be okay. It's not okay. As a matter of fact, your punishment should be worse because you're supposed to have an inherent more sense of law because you have to uphold it. And again, increasing respect not only of the law, they need to increase their respect of how they treat people, period, especially people of color.
Okay. All right. So in terms of, and by the way, everybody, if you have a one sentence solution to this, type it in the chat and I'll put it on the screen so we can see your solutions as well. I know thousands of you are watching and you are all smart people. That's why you're here. So share your solution. Just make it short so everybody can read it. Don't type a whole paragraph. Just type a sentence so that we can all sort of think through and make everybody smarter that's here. So one thing I want to ask you all about, and anybody can answer this question. I read something about Maxine Waters, and I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but the judge made a comment basically claiming that Maxine Waters' statement about becoming confrontational in response to this, that could be grounds for an appeal. That I think he said to the attorneys, basically, I wish the politicians would stop commenting on this and respect the courts and allow us to do our job. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think it's just much ado about nothing, or do you think that there really could be grounds for appeal? And how do you just feel in general about this idea of all of us becoming more confrontational? Like, let's say all of us just said we're going to go out in the streets, we're going to fight for what we believe in, and so you believe something different from me, so I'm going to fight you. We're all fighting each other. Is that really what we're looking for? Like, what does that type of America end up looking like to y'all?
So we're not getting ready to throw Maxine Waters under the bus, period. I didn't have a problem at all about what she said. What she said was right. She didn't call for violence. And quite frankly, you're supposed to be violent with people who violent with you. I do not understand how we are so socialized to be, just accepting of all of this crap that keep happening in the community. And do not compare inter-community violence with police murder. There is no comparison. The police are supposed to be professionals. They are actual government workers, and the people that they killing actually pay their damn salaries. So this idea that we're supposed to just lay down and pray and continue to march and all of this stuff, and that's going to change it? No. I mean, Malcolm X said, be violent with people who are violent with you. And to me, that makes perfect sense. The first law of nature is self-preservation, period. And so what other community? I mean, I don't understand how we think that is so wrong for somebody to suggest that you should be confrontational about seeing a live murder, somebody with a knee in somebody's neck for damn near 10 minutes, calling for their mother and telling you that they couldn't breathe. And then if they had to let him off, that we shouldn't have been confrontational? Give me a break.
Okay. All right. So there we go. John Thomas, did you have something you want to add? Or John Henry? I see you raise your hand.
Go ahead.
I'll just say I completely agree. Like I was saying earlier, like how many more times are we going to be sitting there marching and begging and protesting and then you have some black figures on these different TV shows. They're crying when things, why is this still happening? And then they're crying when our white savior gets in office to supposedly save us, and they're not there to save us. We're shown as being weak. We are constantly being shown as being weak, and no one respects another person like that. That's what I'm saying. We need to straighten our back up. And I saw somebody that said earlier when I was talking about defending our community, would shoot at the cops? Well, hell, we shoot at everybody else. Why don't we
talk about it?
I'm not saying go and find a cop. No, don't get me wrong. Don't go find police. But if the police are coming into your community and they start beating up your women and children and your brothers, you need to step in and defend your women, children, and brothers. If you got enough balls to go out and shoot another dude that looks like you because he stepped on your shoes in a club or because he whatever, then you need to have that same amount of energy towards the people, this system who put us in a situation where we're doing this shit in the first place. Excuse my French.
Okay, well, enough said. John, I saw your hand went up. Do you have something to say, John? Here.
Yeah, there's an old saying, there's a time and place for everything. Now, the time for confrontation was when George Floyd had his knee, when Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's back.
Agree.
There were people around there filming. Let one person continue to film, but y'all get that damn knee off his neck.
Right.
You don't have to try to kill. You don't even have to try to kill Derek Chauvin. Just get the man's knee off of his neck. He's already handcuffed. The time for confrontation is when they were choking out Eric Garner. You got 4 or 5 police officers choking out, and again, you have multiple people sitting there filming it, but nobody's intervening. That's the time for confrontation.
Well, that's a good point.
I agree.
That's a good point you bring up when you talk about that whole situation. And at that time, you saw that there were other cops that were there that were kind of involved in this, crowd control. And
let us not forget, they need to be convicted guilty as well.
Yeah, they trial coming up later this year. One of them is Asian too. Yeah, there they go.
Yeah. So they're gonna prosecute all these other cops actually, and so it's gonna be real interesting. And I think that what it definitely will do, from what I have seen, and my guess is that it's gonna make police understand that if they don't get it already, that the old way of doing things is over. And I do remember I talked to a cop once who said many years ago that the days of the blue wall of silence and everything, he said, oh, that's done. He said that was the thing that we had back in the 80s and whatnot. And he said now it's a different day. And I also asked him about the George Floyd situation. I said, is there anything in police procedure that would make sense out of that? He said no. He said that was murder. And this is what a cop I trust said, and some other cops. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I'm looking for the solution, the long-term solution. I think that also what's going to happen, I hope, is that we're going to start going deeper into the rabbit hole of the criminal justice system. We see what happened when George Floyd was killed. The bigger question to me is what would have happened if George Floyd had lived, if he had just barely been taken to an inch of his life and they hauled him away. And everybody forgot about it. Nobody said anything, like, oh yeah, remember that guy? They had his knee on his neck. Yeah, but he didn't. He lived, right? Yeah, he lived. So everybody moves on to something else. Well, what happens then once he gets in that system, right? He gets in the system. He's going to be judged by a jury of not his peers. And, a bunch of white folks are going to send him right to jail. Because he's got a crappy prosecutor or crappy defense attorney, overworked, public defender, right? So he takes a plea. Like 90-something% of the guys and women that go before these courts, they end up being forced to take a plea. He goes to prison where he is starved and malnourished, beaten on a regular basis, maybe raped on a regular basis, injected with severe mental illness and STDs and everything else that happens to these poor people that go to prison. And we kind of forget about that. And so I encourage everybody, as we're talking about what's happening here, to understand that this is really the tip of the iceberg. That first encounter with the police is just the first of many encounters with an entire system that is built on community extermination. And then these poor guys, when they come out, I don't know if anybody's, had a lot of relatives. I had a lot of my relatives that went to prison. And when they come home, they're being hauled back to the community and they're just broken and busted down. It reminds me of Oprah in The Color Purple. When she went to jail and she's all vibrant and everything, she comes out and she's just gone through hell. And a lot of our people that have survived the criminal justice system have really gone through a hell. And I want to exterminate the entire hell. I don't just want to talk about the cops. I want to talk about all of that. So let's continue that conversation, but let's really look at the whole system. And because I'm still mad about all those people Joe Biden locked up in the 90s. I ain't forgot about that, because many of those people are still in jail right now, going through hell right now. So
on weed convictions.
Yes, absolutely. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shut my mouth and let the panelists give us our last word. So you know what? We're gonna go with ladies first. So Mrs. Akia, and then we will go age before I'm not gonna say before beauty, because you're not beautiful, John. You're a handsome young man. That's what you are. And then we'll go with John F. Thomas, and then I'll close this out and we bounce out of here. So Mrs. Akia, what can we learn from this? Where do we go from here? What's the next steps?
So I want to say, first of all, I love you, Black people. Right? We've been through a lot. We're still going through a lot. Hang in there, breathe, and definitely take care of yourselves. Don't allow this constant coverage, what I call Black trauma porn, to desensitize you, and to have you just in a permanent place of pity or a permanent place of depression. We got to be careful and take care of ourselves and our mental health. So that's number one. Number two, people can definitely follow me at Real Talk and Censor. That's on Instagram and Twitter. Also on YouTube, Real Talk with ZSJ. You all can check me out for my own commentary there. And then finally, there's more trials to go. Thank you, boys, for posting the pictures of all four of the murderers and complicit in the murder of George Floyd. And I do think that, as a community, we need to become more creative and think outside of the box. I think community control of police is certainly one avenue towards an eventual abolition, because I don't see how anybody at this point can argue against full and complete abolition of this current system to build an actual system of justice. And please do not conflate building a system of justice with the police. It is not. That's it.
All right. John Henry Harris, and John's at the blackbosschannel.com, and so is John F. Thomas. And so I'll give you guys the URL for that as well. John, your final thoughts?
Be one family. If you haven't figured it out, stay out their face. Stay out the face of the police. Limit your interactions with them. Try to live righteously. Just stay out of their face. Now our co-host B1 Ag with Farmer Brown EMC. That's on the Black Boss Network. We preview live at Brothers on Sports and Society. We encourage you to go grow something. We encourage you to take your time and efforts and put shovels in the ground, and let's get our own local food system strengthened. That's where jobs are. That's where the need is. This is about survival. I ain't got time to tongue wrestle with them folks, man. I'm trying to live. And so, like I said, my efforts, as much as the police need overhauling, I'd rather put my efforts towards thriving.
Yeah. You and Farmer Brown, the MC, do a good job in terms of talking about something I've noticed is really a big trend right now, which is Black folks growing our own food. Because if we're really talking about, I mean, to me, this is Black Lives Matter 2.0, where Black lives really do matter all the time in every context. And when you talk about Black life being important, or the ways that Black people are being killed, the food is probably one of the leading methods of Black genocide. The food is, they kill them. They kill me with that Popeye's chicken and them cheeseburgers and everything else. And so what I like about what you guys have going on to B1 Ag is you're talking about something that is very revolutionary, which is growing our own food and really having that true independence that we've been talking about. We've been talking about freedom and independence, but you can't be independent if you can't even feed yourself. So I love it, man. So by the way, so everybody, they do stuff on a regular basis at the blackbosschannel.com. So if things like growing your own food is of interest to you, you should definitely follow. Make sure you subscribe. So John F. Thomas, what are your final thoughts, man?
My final thoughts are basically one, be careful of the trauma porn. So just like Boyce said before with Sean King, I like Sean King, but a lot of times, a lot of the videos, I don't want to keep watching it because it keep re-traumatizing you. It just re-traumatizes you. Same thing with CNN and all these different killings. Even with this the Derek Chauvin trial, I didn't keep up with it. Somebody else was, and I was just following their points of what they were saying because I didn't want to keep re-traumatizing myself. I got better things to do with my Black life and towards my Black people. 2, we need to support Black businesses. Not just in February, year round. 3, we need economical power. read Powernomics so you can know more about that, or talk with people in your community who are about that. 4, we need political power. We need our own bred politicians who will look out for black people's interests, and not the world's, not the Asian community, not because if you look at these other groups, they don't really have an agenda for black people, but for some reason we have agendas for everybody else. No, we need to look out for black people. Quid pro quo. That's what we need to go for if we're talking about voting. Quid pro quo. And last but not least, learn and get back to protecting our own. Don't just stand by, like John was saying earlier. Show these people who are coming into our community and abusing our people that we aren't going for that anymore. I ain't saying go out and start some stuff, but if somebody, just like Zakiya was saying and earlier, just think about it like this. If your child is getting bullied at school, are you going to tell your child to ask and beg and to go around and just march so that the bully will just find it in their hearts to stop bullying them? No, you're going to tell your child, if that bully puts their hand on you, put your hands back on that bully to where they don't touch you no more. So we have to get back to we can't be so passive as we have been. We can't be passive moving forward. We have to be active. We have to mobilize and start thinking, stop being so emotional. There's nothing wrong with being emotional, but use the emotion in the right places. If we got to tear shit up, we might have to tear shit up. But then there's other times where we have to think logically and go about things in the right way. So there's places for both.
Well, I want to start by first of all saying thank you everybody who tuned in and to hang out with us today. We love every one of you, and I would like to ask everybody in the chat if you could give a digital thank you, digital round of applause for our panelists. Thank them for their time. Also, whatever platform you're on, hit a button, hit a thumbs up button and a subscribe button, so you can follow the platforms, because we're trying to build Black media. We want to make sure we have our own narrative out here, not the narrative that you're going to see on some of these other networks. And it's really funny you talk about trauma porn, John. I went, somebody literally while we were talking sent me a text, and it was a screenshot of Sean King's video in terms of what's happened with the sister in Ohio. And I'm glad, I like Sean King's work. He's from Kentucky, as I am. And so I actually think he does more good than harm. But I can't. But the what they call it, the tagline of the little comment he put, it comes off like a drama queen. Like I think he said something like, "My dear Lord, oh my goodness, Jesus, I can't." You
need to stop, boys.
If you look at every comment Sean makes, it's always like, "Oh my God," and I can't do that every day. I can't do it.
So funny.
Maybe she can do it. Maybe she can. I can't do that. Right. I think that you're right in the sense that I'm the person that will say, it's like in my household, I got daughters and they get to screaming and hollering and throwing stuff at each other because somebody took somebody's hairbrush and I hate you. Blah, blah, blah. When I come in as a man, I'm not going to come in with that same kind of energy. It doesn't mean that it's lesser than. It just means I think that there is a point where you have to say, how do we reserve our emotional energy and apply it in strategic ways to solve a specific problem, as opposed to simply screaming and hollering every time we want to honor the fact that white people did something else to us. Like, because we're honoring them when we keep talking about how bad they treat us. I think there's a point where we say, okay, let's figure out the solution here. So everybody in here.
Also, you think about, sorry, I mean, just to add this, like if you look at Malcolm X, if you look at Dr. Martin Luther King, hell, if you look at Harriet Tubman, if you look at Rosa Parks, our leaders of the Fred Hampton, how many of them got on TV and start crying? How many of them got on TV? Our leaders who they took out, who they strategically removed. How many of them got on TV? You don't see boys on here crying. I've never seen. I've seen. Video.
I got to interrupt and say I have been brought to tears a couple of times. I don't cry. I don't cry at zero policy. But I'm gonna go ahead and defend that and say I will cry when I think about my grandmother. That might get me, or if there's something that I feel very passionate about, it might happen. But to your point, though,
ain't nothing wrong with crying.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with crying, but a man shouldn't be crying every day.
Not to his oppressor. Right. Not to your oppressor.
Right. Exactly. Like if you're gonna cry, it must be done in a strategic way, or meaning not strategic, but in the sense that you can't let that just flow all the time. There's times where you got to man up a little bit, and manning up, there's nothing wrong with that concept. It's a decision, right? Am I going to whine and cry about what you did to me, or am I going to get angry and use that energy to solve the problem? You know, so but to your point, though, I agree with you, John. I think that we got too many men that don't understand that that we can't have our men run around with too much estrogen. You know, we can't do that. It doesn't mean that there are strong women. Women are very strong, right? Black women are the strongest women are the strongest people on the planet. But I think that our men must be able to come with a type of strength that they can respect. And I don't think a lot of black women respect some of us, because some of us will buckle up like bitches when things get hard. Like what John was saying earlier, when he said there's a time and place for everything. You made a good point, John Henry, when you said that when he was sitting there with his knee on the guy's neck, why is everybody sitting there filming? You know what that made me think about is, how many times have you seen a video of a black woman getting beat up and the black men are laughing or filming or watching or talking about it, and no black man is stepping in to intervene? I think those are the kinds of things that we have to address in the community.
Is black men have to show that we know how we still know how to hit. Now that when I say hit, that's either strike or take an action item. You know, that's hit. But we also, you know, boys, you from Louisville, you know about Muhammad Ali. We also can't forget the skill of not getting hit. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Just because they're trying to hit us doesn't mean we have to sit there and take it either. You know, you can bob and weave. You know what I'm saying? Let your feet dance. Ha ha he, you can't catch me. You know what I'm saying? Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. We're gonna hit you though.
All right. Well, I love it. Well, I'm honored to have a chance to speak with the heavy hitters that are on this panel. Please follow everybody that's here. And thank you all for hanging out with us. It was wonderful. And we'll be back again soon. So God bless everybody. Please have a good night, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Good night, everybody.